Hi everyone. So this is a video to help revisit some of the concepts that we struggled with on the Unit 1 test before the retest that will be tomorrow, Wednesday, September 13th. So let's get ready for that. Also a reminder that I do have tutoring after school today if you want to stop by. All right, so this question, number 2 on the original test, was one of the top 5 most missed questions. And in this particular problem, just remember when you see the words, what value of b makes this equation true, really just means solve for b. So we are taking that equation and solving for b. Step number 1 is always distribute, and most of us are pretty good at that at this point. So we're going to start out with the left side will stay the same. The right side, we will multiply out that 8. To each of the terms inside the parentheses. So 8 times 15b is 120b. And then 8 times 7 is 56. Now our goal is to solve for b, but remember we have b's on both sides. I always go with getting rid of the one on the right. So I'm getting rid of the 120b. It's not the only correct step though. Keep that in mind. I could have subtracted 30b from both sides and also been correct. Okay, so 120 minus 120 is 0, so there are no b's on the right side. We do have a 56 still though. The 20 on the left, and when we subtract those b's on the left, we get 90b. Be careful, those b's tend to look like 6's, so it can get confusing. Now our goal is to get this b alone. So in order to do that, we need to get rid of the plus 20 by minusing 20. Remember, we do our adding and subtracting first, division will be last. So 20 minus 20 is 0. Negative 90b equals 36. And then we divide both sides by negative 90. Because anything divided by itself is 1. So 1b is equal to, and then you would divide 36 by negative 90. Now in your calculator, you can type in 36 divided by negative, the negative button's right below the 3, 90, and we get negative 2/5. That's the answer as a fraction, and aware where you type in your answers will accept a fraction or it will accept a decimal. So if you want the decimal, just hit Control Enter instead of just enter, and it will give you the decimal version of that as well. So either of these answers would be considered correct. Okay. Now I also want to remind you, you can check your answers using NSolve. When you're doing NSolve, you hit the menu button, you go to number 3, algebra, and then number 1, numerical solve. Now we type in the equation that we started with. So for me, it would be 30b plus 20. The equal button is right here below the control button. 8 parentheses 15b plus 7 close parentheses. Now after that, I need to put a comma, it's down here in the bottom left, and then put b, the letter b, because I'm telling the calculator solve for b. Notice that that comma b is inside the parentheses. Everything should be inside that big set of parentheses. Go ahead and hit enter, and you can see it does give us the answer. Okay, but keep in mind, I will be grading all of your work. If you only have the correct answer because you used NSolve instead of actually solving, you will not get full credit. Okay, so either of these two answers, the fraction or the decimal, will work. Number 6, this was another most missed question. So let's start by pausing the video and try solving it on your own. Okay, take a moment to try and solve it. These first two steps were where most people got this question incorrect. Firstly, we do not distribute the 3x. We are distributing the negative 1 that's invisible there in front of the parentheses. So when we multiply negative 1 times negative 5 and negative 1 times negative 6x, we end up with pluses because a negative times a negative is a positive. And the right side, don't forget that's a -2. So when we multiply it by 3, we get a -6 or -6. So make sure that you're distributing correctly. Then we combine like terms, and some people were not doing that at all, or they were doing it incorrectly. I have them highlighted, the ones that are alike. Remember, you can only combine them if they're on the same side, and both of those x's that are highlighted are on the left side. So -3x plus 6x gives us that 3x there, and then the 5 got brought down. Now try solving it the rest of the way if you haven't already done so. From here, you'll notice that I added the 8x to both sides. And now if my goal is to get this x here alone, I should try and get rid of the +5 that is also on the left side by minusing it. 5 minus 5 is 0. So now we have 11x on the left. And on the right, a lot of us made errors with subtraction. -6. And then I subtract 5 from it, I'm at -11. Okay, think about it like money. If I owe you $6 and I borrow 5 more, I now owe you $11. So now we're dividing both sides by whatever's in front of x. In this case, that's 11, because 11 divided by 11 is 1. So we have 1x equals, and -11 divided by +11 is a -1. And of course, you can check it using NSolve. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the next question. Go ahead and pause the video at this point so that you can try this problem on your own. Notice that it is multiple choice. That doesn't make it any easier. And it does mean you still need to show your work on the retest tomorrow, okay? You can't just pick an answer and get full credit. So take a moment, pause the video, and try this problem. Okay, now you should be checking your answer. Please note some of the errors you might have made. For instance, right here, we should be, when we distribute a negative times a negative, gives us a positive 10x. Now you could have subtracted the 10x or the 12x from both sides. I chose the 12x because notice that all of my answer choices have x on the left side. So I want my x to be on the left side. So I eliminated the one on the right. And then to get rid of the negative or -2 here on the left, I added 2. And then my last step is going to be divide. And this is the part where we really need to look to see, is the symbol, the inequality symbol, going to flip or not? So I've got x. 8 divided by -2 is -4. Now the real question is, does this symbol less than or equal to, is it going to flip and become greater than or equal to? How do we know? Look to see what you're dividing by. If you are dividing by a negative number, then the symbol flips. Otherwise, it will remain the same. So ours does flip, okay? It doesn't matter whether the answer is negative. My answer is -4. That has no impact on the inequality symbol. It matters what you divided both sides by. So in this case, our answer would be C. If you had forgotten to flip the inequality symbol, you might have chosen A. So make sure that you are looking at that every time you work an inequality problem. Number 9, take a moment to try to work this problem. Pause the video and try to work this problem, and try and graph it on a number line yourself. Now, after looking at this problem, please check to see that you have subtracted. Notice I subtracted the 2x, not the 3x, because once again, I'd like to have my x on the left side, not the right side. So 3x minus 2x is 1x, and keep in mind you don't need to put the 1 in front of the x. 1x is the same thing as just x. So that means I have one less step to do when I'm solving. I'm not going to have to divide because x is already isolated there at the end. I did not need to flip the symbol because I did not divide by a negative number. I subtracted 21, but I did not divide by a negative number. My inequality symbol should stay the same. Now on a where, you have to choose first which of these 4 we're going to use, okay? So looking at the symbol, that is a less than symbol. How do I know? Because it's a squished L, less than, okay? And since it doesn't have a bar underneath it, it is an open circle, so it's not going to be this one or this one. And less than means we are going to the left side, because our numbers get smaller going to the left. So this is the one that I would choose. And it always starts out by putting a point at 0. You need to move it to -5 yourself. And it's an open dot. I'm going to do it in a different color. Maybe we'll see it better. An open dot, and we're shading to the left if you're doing it on paper. Okay. It is an open dot. So in case you forget, I'm going to write it down here. Less than and greater than, get an open circle. Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, get a closed circle. And remember that the inequality symbol itself is like a little arrow that tells you which direction to shade. Okay, take a moment to answer question 10, the very last one, and that will conclude the top 5 most missed questions on the Unit 1 test. Work through this problem, pause the video, and then unpause when you're ready to check your answer. All right, take a look at our first couple steps. Notice that in this problem, it doesn't tell you whether to solve for x or solve for y, but notice that all of the answer choices all start with y equals, which to me means I'm trying to get y by itself, just like all the answer choices are. So I'm solving for y, which means I need to subtract my x. You can see that I did that right here. I minus 5x. Now my biggest issue, guys, is that when I look at that right side, I cannot subtract a 5x from a 10. This right here. One of them has an x, the other does not. So what I did instead is I just wrote them next to each other. Because if I was reading that, it would be 10 minus 5x. So I rewrote it horizontally as 10 minus 5x. Okay, so now I need to actually divide. -6 divided by -6 is 1. So 1y equals, okay, and then now we need to divide 10 by -6, and this is some stuff you could do in your calculator if you wish. Let me show you how to do this. So the first fraction that we're dividing is 10 divided by -6, and your calculator reduces that fraction for you, -5/3. And the second fraction was -5 divided by -6. Notice it stays the same, but a negative divided by a negative does make it positive. So let's see how we would write that. Okay, so 10 divided by -6 was -5/3, and -5 divided by -6 was +5/6, and it has an x attached to it. Now, if you look at our answer choices, they don't quite look like that because they have the x term first, but we can do that too. We can just have them switch spots, okay? So let's do that. Let's have them switch spots, these two right here. Make sure that the signs go with it. 5/6 x is positive, so it should stay positive, and the 5/3 should stay negative. So our answer choice is D. Okay. Make sure, guys, that you know each of these and would be able to explain it to someone else. That's how you know how to do it, and show all of your work on the retest tomorrow. I will be grading the work to see if you get credit. There will be 5 questions on the retest, so keep in mind that means each one is worth 20 points. So showing work is important. If you get the whole problem wrong and you didn't show any work at all, then you lose 20 points, and I don't want that for you. So make sure you are showing as much work as possible on the retest. If you need help, I have tutoring after school today. Have a great day, guys.